All right, friends, it's T-Man. We're back again with a Blaha video, bro. Skis. We're going to react to the Bumba Cloud himself, the gym lifting, recruiting, fitness gear slave, Blaha. So Blaha, the Bumba Cloud of the fitness industry, says the key to muscle growth. Again? Man, how many times has he brought this up? The key. How does he know what the key is to muscle growth? He's never built any. If you've never built any, how would you know what the key is? Here's the question, man. Seriously. Everything is based on your experience. I could show you a video right now where a guy's talking about deadlifting will not build your body, and he's correct, and he's got a lot of experience, and he deadlifts. So it's kind of obvious. It speaks for itself, experience. But what experience does Blaha have exactly? He never liked bodybuilding, G for P, all that kind of stuff, whatever. He never liked bodybuilding. I'm talking... I know he hated whatever, these guys on stage, those kind of whatever, the drug guys, but he likes drugs, which is kind of weird. He likes the drugs, but he hates the bodybuilders on stage with drugs. And then again, he hates natural bodybuilding because he says you need magic supplements because he never discovered what real bodybuilding is. And to this day, he still hasn't. And I know he's watching my video, so he must know at this point. It might have registered in his head. Hello, bodybuilding, eccentric exercise. Powerlifting, concentric. Powerlifting does not build muscles. Eccentric bodybuilding builds muscles. Get it? Why does bodybuilding build muscles? Because it's based on a principle of what? Eccentric lifting. Why doesn't powerlifting build muscles? Because it's based on powerlifting. It's based on the principles of concentric power to build power, not building muscle. Okay, dude?
What is the single most important and probably only important key in determining if we are going to make gains or not? Hey, everybody,
It's easy. It's easy how it determines how you make gains or not. To discover in the lifting world what causes muscles to damage. See what I mean? There are many ways I can damage my muscles because I've got a lot of experience. There's many ways for me to damage my muscles, and I can always bring back this damage. See what I mean? That's the difference. Now, but what is the one exercise that will always, most likely, always to get you damaged if you lift? Eccentric exercise. But it cannot happen every single day. You understand, people? It cannot happen every single day. Now, powerlifting can happen every single day because it's based on what? Powerlifting. Now, bodybuilding is based on eccentric exercise. So it cannot happen every day because it compromises sportive performance. So that's why they say powerlifting is a sport because it doesn't compromise sportive performance. Lifting concentrically because there's no damage. Now, bodybuilding causes muscle damage. It compromises sportive performance. Therefore, bodybuilding cannot be a effing fucking sport.
Jason Blaha here. I thought I would answer this question for you guys and gals. If you guys would, though, please remember to click like down below. If you aren't following or subscribed, please do so if you enjoyed the video. And drop me a comment down below with your thoughts on it. All right, let's just be straightforward. Progressive overload. Progressive overload is everything. It's not even always about training to failure. It's not always about how much volume you're doing. Yes.
Progressive low overload, you could say it could be considered everything. You understand me? But there are different ways to get this so-called progressive overload. There are different ways how it is managed. You may not understand it all because you don't have enough experience to figure it. You haven't figured it out because lack of experience. But once you do, then you'll understand it. But yeah, you could overload the concentric, but guess what? No growth. But here's the thing: you can overload the eccentric, and guess what? All of a sudden, there's growth. See the difference? And one can be overloaded more than the other.
Those are factors in progressive overload, right? And I don't want to say that they're irrelevant, but in the context of if you are gaining muscle or not, it really and truly is about progressive tension on the individual muscle and on the individual muscle fiber. But I think where people get confused with the progressive overload thing, they get into all these other ideas. Well, what about training density? What about just adding more and more volume?
Okay, think about this test that they did. Remember those scientists or whatever, they did that study, remember on YouTube a while back, a few years ago, whatever. And then people were arguing about it. So they had a group that did lightweight, high repetition, lightweight. And I had a group that did heavyweight, low repetition. All right. They found that both groups had the same strength. They built the same strength and the same gains. Same gains, same strength. Why? Why? What's the difference? Okay. One overloaded with heavyweight. The other one overloaded with what? High repetition work. So they did high repetitions. So they did more work, but at a higher repetition, lighter weight. The other group did low repetition but heavier weight. Okay. See the difference in this so-called overload? So in your experience, you keep thinking, well, it has something to do with weight, not necessarily. You can overload your body with higher repetitions. Yeah, at a lower cost in weight. See what I mean? People don't even understand what overload means. They have no clue, like Blaha. He has no clue what overload means. Now, what if I lift moderately heavy, but I do a full upper body one day, and I do every group, and I do like high repetition work, and I do a lot of sets for every single muscle group. I do all of my muscles, my back, my shoulders, my arms, my forearms, my chest, abs, neck, whatever, bro, and I go nuts. Will I have gotten this damage to come back in an overload? Yeah, you can consider that an overload as well. You can consider that an overload. You may not have lifted superly heavy, but that's considered an overload. Here's another thing. Remember that guy? I can't remember his name. It was a Jack LaLanne. I think it was Jack LaLanne. Remember, he had an old TV show, Jack LaLanne. He goes, watch me lift 1,000 pounds. And then he moved these pieces of wood. He moved them from a box to another box. Is that considered overload? Yes. Did he lift 1,000 pounds in one repetition, in one rep? No. He moved 1,000 pounds in pieces. You understand me? He kept moving them in pieces. Maybe people don't even understand that. I don't know. Whatever. He moved like a couple thousand pounds or something. I can't remember what it was. It was more than 1,000 pounds, okay? I think it was 2,000 or 3,000 pounds. He goes, watch me move 2,000, 3,000 pounds. But he moved it in increments.
No, not necessarily, because if progressive overload is not present, those things are not going to stimulate new muscle growth, especially if you're not growing at all. And when I say progressive overload, what we mean at the core of it is either adding weight.
Yeah, I would agree. You need some progressive overload. But which one do you need? See what I mean? That is according to your needs. Which one do you need according to your needs? See what I mean? Do you need an overload in higher repetition? Do you need, I don't know, do you need higher weight? Like, what do you need exactly there? Do you need more sets? I don't know, dude. It's relative.
Or adding.
You need more intensity and duration. That's another thing. That's an overload. Intensity and duration could be considered progressive overload. Here's a weight. Here's your exercise. Now the duration and the intensity is going for a long time. Is that considered an overload? Yes. That could be considered an overload.
Reps to individual sets. Now, that being said, that sounds pretty straightforward, but there is a little bit of nuance to that. In other words, it has to be actual progress at the level of the tendon and the muscle itself, right? Because otherwise the guys are like, oh, so if we just...
Man, these ligaments and tendons, they don't get any bigger, dude. They don't get bigger, they get longer. They don't get bigger, they get longer. So they prevent you from getting injured. But that's only in eccentric, really. If you're getting damaged, well, not necessarily eccentric. Okay, let's put it this way: and progressively overloading it. Okay, whether it's sets or whatever, sets, reps, or friggin' weight.
Add weight to the bar and we just lift heavier is progressive overload, right? And it's like, well, no, not always. In theory, it should be. Yes, if your range of motion, your leverages, your form, all of that stay the same, then yes. But if you are adding weight at the expense of any of those things, you're not necessarily progressing, right? And I think this is where we lose the plot. I think a lot of less experienced lifters, or just guys, we like to ego lift. We know it, admit it. A lot of us ego lift. It's hard not to. It's just part of being a guy. I understand. I get it. I'm not going to hate on you for it. Look, we've all been there. I'm 48. I've been doing this a while. We've all been there. So
Here's the thing: in concentric exercise, when they're talking about also progressively overloading either the weight, you can progressively overload in the concentric as well. The weight, the duration, the intensity, the sets, or the reps can be overloaded. For an example, if I have a guy doing a deadlift, let's say the guy's doing 500-pound deadlift, and he's doing like, I don't know, two repetitions or three repetitions, right? Okay. He's doing 500 pounds. But then I have another guy next to him. He's doing half of that. I don't know. He's doing, whatever, 250 pounds. Okay, 250 pounds. And I'm having him do, I don't know, 12 repetitions per set. Okay, I have him doing slightly more repetition work and at 250, and maybe I have him doing the same amount of sets. Okay, like the other guy. So the other guy is doing 10 sets of 3 repetitions at 500. The other guy, he's doing 250 at 12 repetitions at 10 fucking whatever sets. Okay, dude? So, what do you think's going to happen in 3 months? What do you think's going to happen in 3 months? Do you think the strength level of the guy doing 250 and the guy doing 500, you think the guy doing 500 will be stronger than the guy at 250? Do you think the guy 250 could actually do the 500? See what I mean? It's something you have to experiment with, okay? But it's still considered an overload. Now, one is overloading with the weight, the other one is overloading with the repetition work. There's more repetition work being done. Now, you can also increase his sets if you want. Maybe do more work. I don't know.
if you are maintaining the form, yes, same form, and you're not cutting range of motion. So notice here on that bench press that I'm doing there, I'm doing really high reps at 225. Notice I pause on the chest on every rep. Notice there's no leg drive on that. There's no cheating. There's no bouncing. We're not stopping short of the chest. Okay, in that case, yes, if you were to add 5 pounds or even 2.5 pounds to that set, right? Let's say you're doing sets of 10 with 225. It doesn't have to be 225. Let's take it down to 135. You know, for the other guys, a lot of guys are like, yeah, I'm over here trying to get basic information. I'm not cranking out sets of 10, pause with 225. Okay, all right, fair enough. All right, 135. And you can do 3 sets of 10 really clean like that. No cheating, no bouncing, no stopping short of the chest, and you can add 2.5 pounds. That's progressive overload. Okay? What about if you can add 1 rep to
Okay, yeah.
one of those sets? That's progressive overload. That is what we're talking about.
That's progressive overload. If you could add 1 more rep or 1 more set, that's considered progressive overload. If you can add 1 more pound, that's progressive overload. Yes, Blaha, yes.
You are working harder than you previously worked. And if you do that, you're stimulating muscle growth. Okay?
Hold on. If you do that, you're stimulating muscle growth. Not if it's concentric lifting, bro. Not if it's concentric lifting. You are not stimulating muscle growth there. If anything, very minute, because there is some eccentric going on there for sure, but it's so minute you'll never see it.
Now, early on in your training, that's not so hard to do. Okay, that's not so hard to do, right? As long as you're not gaining too much fat. Okay, that's its own separate thing too, isn't it? Dudes are like, yeah, but when I gain fat, those lifts go up faster. Yeah, because it changes the leverage. It changes the range of motion. It changes the leverage. But if you're barely gaining any body weight, so it's not necessarily body fat changing leverages, it's muscle. So if you can add 2.5 pounds, that's progress.
It's muscle? Any proof?
If you can add another 2.5 pounds, that's progress. If you can add reps, that's progress. In fact, what a lot of us do as we get further into it.
Well, I don't recommend you go over a certain level of reps, but I do recommend you increase the sets. Sets are more important than the reps in specific occasions at this point. But once you become really advanced, then you'll know why you can use a very high repetition range and what it is for exactly. Why are you using it?
Do stuff like this is a very old school thing called double progression. Like, so you might say, well, instead of 10, how about I do 3 sets of 6 and try to add reps and get to 7, 8, and when I can get to 10, I'll add weight. And then the reps are going to go back down. People say, well, wait, if the reps went down but we added weight, does it count? Yes, as soon as you start adding reps again or you add weight again.
Not necessarily. If you added weight and the reps are going down, it just means that, okay, whatever. It means that you can't complete it for a certain amount of reps. That's all it means, bro. That's it, really. But you shouldn't go under 8. Look, my recommendation is you shouldn't go under 8 reps. So if you are increasing the weight, you don't want to go under 8. Stay there. If you're going heavier.
Right? Because progressive overload is present. That is what we are looking for.
Yeah.
Okay? That's what we're looking
But here's the question. Is this focus, this lifting, is it concentric? Or is it full range of motion? Or is this eccentric lifting? That will determine, that will be the major determining factor in what it is you're trying to get. Is this power you're chasing? Like you want to be good at lifting a heavy weight? Well, then that's concentric lifting. Now, being good also at lifting specific way, you could say concentrically, and even getting damage at the same time. But you don't really need that. That will just exhaust you. Here's the thing. Full range of motion for people that are lifting. So you have the eccentric and the concentric. To even get damage out of a full range of motion, you're going to have to progressively overload what? The sets and the reps. That's the problem. And a lot of people, they don't do that. They don't understand that. That's too much work for them. They're like, what? You mean I got to be in the gym for the next 3 hours? Lifting? Oh, I'm not doing that. My workouts are like 10 minutes, 30-minute workout, 40-minute workout, the max, 40 minutes. See the difference? Now, okay, that may be too much for some people. Okay. You get some endurance there, you get some damage, you get whatever, blah, blah, blah. All right, now we move on to something more sophisticated. Eccentric exercise for muscles to grow muscle damage. Okay. Do we have to do so many sets like and spend so much time in the gym, the duration, like in a full range of motion, trying to get this damage to come back? No, absolutely not. The time is cut. It's shorter. There's less energy being used because it's not full range of motion. We're just focused on the eccentric. Now, powerlifting. Is there some eccentric there? Well, yeah. Are they doing full range of motion powerlifting? Not necessarily. They're focused on concentric. Now, if they focus on full range of motion, trying to do powerlifting, they too are gonna kind of get worn out. And I don't know. They would have to do more work, and they might even get damaged, so it may compromise some of the sportive performance in powerlifting. Well, there you go. So there's a medium when people say full range of motion.
Now, Now, it becomes a problem when form isn't always strict. And I'm not saying we have to have super strict form all the time. Okay? I'm not saying strict form is required for muscle growth. Let me be clear. You can do nothing but
strict form. You don't really need. You need strict form. It depends what you're doing there exactly. How much load you're dealing with when it comes to the weight part.
reps and still gain muscle, but it's harder to track the progress. And I think that's the thing why I tell less experienced lifters you might be coming for advice like this, you need to be really strict. And the reason is you don't have the experience under the barbell to know how much you're cheating, right? You'll take
He must have watched my last video when I talked about that experiment about the high rep, light load, and then heavy load, low rep.
larger, more experienced lifter or bodybuilder who's been doing it quite a few years, they know how much cheating they're doing. They know how much body English they're putting into that movement, and they know if they're cheating more or less.
Those fake bodybuilders would have grown anyways. They took steroids. Okay, it's fake.
When you're still new to these movements, okay, you're not good at assessing that. So you just may be cheating more and more and more, thinking that you're adding reps, that you're adding weight. And you may be, if the amount of cheating and assistance you're getting with that little bit of swing is the same. But it's also, are you taking tension back off the muscle too much with it? Right? Are you unloading the muscle? I've seen guys do that. So when we talk about progressive overload, you have to have that context. So for guys who are still learning this, I honestly recommend you learn to be really strict and learn to be very consistent in your ranges of motion. Make sure you squat all the way below parallel. Make sure you touch your chest. If you're doing a curl, try not to cheat.
Below parallel. I just say this, man. If you're lifting to build your body big and strong and get strength and get power, eccentric is for you, dude. You don't have to waste your time lifting concentrically. There's nothing going to happen there. But an eccentric exercise, you should focus on the, yes, eccentric, full eccentrics. That's about it. Yeah. And you'll figure out how to change up your sets to weight ratio so that you progressively overload on them. Remember, you're progressively overloading all the time in the eccentric. So more sets that would be considered progressive overload. So if you adjust your sets, let's say you're doing the same weight, but you're increasing the sets. Well, you've increased the sets now. So what happens? That's progressive overload. See what I mean? It's not the same as it was. You were just there all the time doing the same set, same weight. Now, what if I do the same sets, but I increase the weight? That's progressive overload. Now, what if I increase the weight and I increase the sets? Well, that's progressive overload, see?
Okay, try not to cheat, even if you use a machine. My God, let's say you use a machine. Make sure that you do that same full range of motion, do the whole range of motion of that machine every time. Because otherwise, you're going to start cheating. And it's the same thing if you gain weight really, really fast. That actually changes leverage and can actually take tension off the muscle because the extra fat that you're gaining can change leverages. That's actually pretty well documented as being the case, especially on stuff like a bench press or a squat where you can get a little squish. So be aware of those things. But as long as you're progressing, you're good. People say, well, how much volume? We could argue about volume all the time, and I get guys say, well, what if I only did one set a week? Well, you will only progress a short time.
Volume. You can consider volume progressive overload as well. It's all progressive overload.
Then you're going to stop progressing. Guys are like, but if I kept progressing, well, yeah. And if a frog had wings, would he bust his ass every time he hops? You know, that's a big what if, and it's a very, very unlikely. But sure, hypothetically.
Look, Blaha is trying to do a lot of eccentrics now. He's even using a plate here. He's not flat-footed on the floor. So he's going down a bit eccentrically. But his problem is he's doing a full range of motion, and there's nothing wrong with that. Here's the thing. If you're doing a lot of your calves full range of motion, then that's when progressive overload is necessary, because sometimes you need to put in more sets there than you would if it was just sorry about that. So if it was just like, man, If it was just eccentric, you don't have to put in that many sets. Now, if it's full range of motion, you're going to have to put in more sets. Okay, dude? That's why. It's kind of obvious.
Yes. People say, well, what if I'm doing too much volume? Well, you'll stop progressing. If you're doing way too much volume, everything's...
If I do too much volume, I'll stop progressing. Yeah, you may be progressing in sarcoplasmic hypertrophy in a full range of motion. You may be progressing there, and you're not aware of it. There you go. They do high volume. They do high volume work, and guess what? It's these trained people, and then it's equated to what? The majority of it's sarcoplasmic, but why is it sarcoplasmic when they do high volume work? Why is it sarcoplasmic? Why aren't they getting damaged? Because they're adapted to their exercises. The eccentric is adapted. The eccentric is the one that gets you myofibrillar growth.
And then you'll know you're probably doing too much volume, something you are not recovering from the volumes. Or
not necessarily. If you're a concentric lifter, high volume training, you're gonna get more power, right? High volume training. I don't know. Now, let's say it's pure eccentric. You do high volume. Will we get some sarcoplasmic? Yeah, of course we will. Will we get damaged? Yes, because we always get damaged where? In the eccentric. Get it, dude? It always gets damaged there. Okay. Now, high volume concentric lifting. Are you going to get better at it? Yeah, you're going to get better at it. Are you going to get sarcoplasmic? Yeah, you're going to get sarcoplasmic. Are you going to get myofibrillar growth lifting concentrically doing high volume? No, you're not.
The work density that you're trying to do, maybe your breaks and stuff are too short. So you have to fix that. But at the end of the day, the key to gaining muscle is going to be about progressive overload, irrespective of the movement. Now, obviously, that also assumes you're doing a good movement that's efficient and works the muscles.
Yeah, but here's the question. Really, if you want to be efficient, right? Why would you lift concentrically, trying to build muscle, lifting concentrically? It never happens for anybody. That's not where muscles are built, in the concentrics, ass cheek squeezing muscles. Now, let's say you do full range of motion, even. You're trying to progressively over full range of motion. That's going to be astronomically difficult for a lot of people. They can't manage it. Now, here comes the advanced lifter, really advanced. Eccentric overload, eccentric exercise always gets you damaged. So, which one would you pick for building muscle? Concentric, full range of motion, or eccentric to build muscle? The eccentric. Everybody would pick number 3, curtain number 3. Why? Because it's the one that builds muscle, gets you damaged all the time. Builds muscle. Okay.
You know, right? Because that's an important factor. But if progressive overload, you're adding reps or adding weight consistently using the same form, the same range of motion, everything else, you're gaining muscle. And that really is the key to doing so. All right.
Not if it's concentric lifting, you won't.
Guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative.
Not if you're not putting in enough work in the full range of motion, because the eccentric has adapted, and it's not going to happen. You're not going to build any muscle lifting concentrically at all, because concentric does not build muscles. Eccentric does. So there you go. So your eccentric in full range of motion has adapted. There's just not enough going on there. Your concentric lifting does not build muscle because it's concentric. It's ass cheek squeezing. And then you have eccentric left, and nobody's eccentric overloading in gyms, okay? Nobody does eccentric work. I know that for a fact. It's obvious. Nobody does eccentric lifting. That's why they're weak. I'll see you in the next one. That's why they're all weak, dude. They're all weak out there. They're all weak. They're just pretend strong guys. Pretend strong people, but they're all weak because they don't lift eccentrically. Now, if you're a strong person and you do lift eccentrically, then you would know from your experience. It would tell you. And there are a lot of people that are experienced. They have experience. They know. They figured it out on their own, a lot of people. I wouldn't say a good majority, but some have. I'll see you in the next one, ciao friends. Don't you think about that? Like, subscribe, support the channel.